All right, it looks like we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate everybody for tuning in for this very special live episode of the Pimpy and Rice Show, also a Rice Report. And this is a collaboration between both of our YouTube channels, Pimpy's Investment Chat and Rice TVX, formerly Rice Crypto. And depending on where you're watching this at, make sure you are subscribed to both channels. We do have links down below. And we're going to go ahead and get this show here started in just one moment. We are joined by Lynette Zang. She is the Chief Market Analyst for ITM Trading. What she does is translate financial noise into understandable language. She has been a banker, a stockbroker, and studied world currency since 1987. And we definitely have the honor and privilege of being joined by Miss LZ today. So we're going to go ahead and get things started. Okay, now I have had the honor and privilege of having Lynette Zang on my show several times, and down below on my channel, I have a playlist that I have linked that I definitely would encourage people to check out all those previous interviews. Lots of education, lots of good information in those ones. But this one is going to be me and Pimpy, and Pimpy has been a big, huge fan of Lynette Zang. And the cool thing about this is I reached out to Pimpy, we met, we talked about Lynette, and he said, he wanted to do an interview with her. So I said, I can help you out. And I got it hooked up. Pimpy wanted me to be involved with this. And the way we're going to do this is I'm pretty much going to let Pimpy handle the majority of the interview. I'm going to chime in, maybe ask a few things here and there. But this is pretty much going to be Pimpy's interview with Lynette Zang, with me kind of sitting in and enjoying. And I'll also kind of be looking at the chat and kind of get involved in the chat group as well. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Lynette Zang, as I mentioned, she's a Chief Market Analyst for ITM Trading. Her motto is food, water, energy, security, community, barterability, and wealth preservation. All this to help you survive and thrive through the collapse that we are currently experiencing. So without further ado, Miss Lynette Zang, appreciate you coming on the show, ma'am.
I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to meet Pimpy too.
This is going to be a great conversation. I guess before we do get started, how's everything going on your end? How's life?
Well, life is, sometimes I feel a little guilty, but life is good because I have been prepared. And this recent crisis really gave me an opportunity to see where the holes were in my personal strategy. And the reprieve has given me an opportunity to get those holes plugged.
Awesome. And so I'm really looking forward to everything that we're going to be talking about today. I know we're going to be getting into some geopolitics. We're going to be talking about precious metals. I know Pimpy has some questions about IRAs and 401ks and things like that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and let things get started. Pimpy, go for it, brother.
Oh, just of course, I told Lynette before we got on there, you're just going to have to give me a moment to gush all over you. Everybody that's watched my videos, I always say, good Lord, if I had Pimpy University, Lynette would definitely be my gold and silver professor. She's somebody that I listen to. And what I enjoy most about listening to your videos, Lynette, is you have a way of taking some things that seem complicated, very complicated, and simplify it, which is important when you're trying to reach out to people who don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Try.
Yeah, and I do too.
I'm always that successful, but I definitely do try.
Well, I run into people that said, I've never even thought about precious metals before, or I didn't realize I could buy gold and silver. Have you ever run into people who said that didn't realize that they could buy as an investment gold and silver?
Actually, a lot of people, because it's been trained out of us since governments and central banks don't really want us to hold something that is so private and that you actually own 100%. And Wall Street certainly doesn't want that either.
So Pimpy, there's been several situations where people have gone out and done like a man on the street thing and gone and offered people basically $10 or an ounce of silver. And most people will take the $10.
I've seen that, and that just blows my mind. But that goes to a great point. Yeah, which is how uneducated people are about the importance of holding precious metals. And that's pretty scary. Like I said, I run into a lot of people. People that have started listening to my videos said, I never even started a retirement or a savings at all until I started listening to your videos about gold and silver. And one thing I stress to them is, I will get these in my comments from time to time, and I'm just curious. I'm sure Lynette does too. You'll see this where they go, oh, this is how the rich get rich and the poor stay poor. I don't have enough money to invest into precious metals. And then what I say to them is, look, you have to find a way. So I had one person say, look, I'm spending like $40, $50 a week on vaping. I just gave up vaping, and then I'll just keep adding to my collection. But I have two great stories. One was a lady named Monica, and she has 3 kids. They're 7, 9, and 11, 2 boys and a girl in the middle. And me and her talked on the phone, and I told her, look, when I was a kid, my dad used to take us on the side of the roads because we wanted to collect aluminum cans. And, we would use the money to buy toys and stuff. And so that's what she started doing, is taking her kids out to collect aluminum cans. And they were able to buy like 1 ounce. And she said when they got the first ounce of silver, they just went crazy. And I said, yeah, but that's your time as a parent to start teaching them the importance of precious metals. And that's what she does. She's got it to this point now where she's got them trained. They want to go like every day to go get aluminum cans and stuff. She said, okay, first you have to do good at school. You got to do your homework when you get home. We got time, we'll go out. So now they want to go out so bad that they're doing all the things that she had a hard time getting them to do. And so now, they're well up about almost close to 100 ounces now, I think it is. But these are the things you have to find ways to do it one way or another. And I even said something about, you might be exhausted, maybe getting a part-time second job. And that's my second success story, was a lady that just battered me every chance she got. Yeah, by the way, that's my Chihuahua. There's this one, McLovin. This is McLovin wanting to say hi. And when he gets jealous and wants me to be quiet, what he does, he puts his head over my mouth to shut me up. So go behave yourself. So she got a second job. She said she was exhausted. She's already exhausted from her first job. She got her second job. But by the time she got her first paycheck from her second job, she was excited. By the time the order came in for silver, it just lit a fire under her butt. It got to the point where she said she knew she had to do the first job, but she was actually more excited and looking forward to her second job so that she can have that money for her precious metals. And now she's well over 1,500 ounces of silver. And this is a lady that said, oh, the rich get rich and the poor get poor. And I'm like, you got to find a way. So do you find that from time to time, Lynette, yourself?
Well, what I've found, I think that a lot of people do think, well, I can't understand this or I can't do this. And they put those limitations around themselves. And with that first story, it kind of reminded me in some ways of me as a child, because my dad was a developer and I used to go down to his job sites and pick up all this scrap copper. And at night, I would sit there and peel off the plastic that was around there. And then I would take it to one of my uncles who was a junk dealer, and I would sell it to him by weight. And then I would take that money over to my uncle who was, both of them were influential, but he was my antique dealer uncle. And he's really the one that started me in the tangibles and helped me understand how these markets go. And I still have the first pieces of really good tangible assets that I bought. I have the very first piece I could show you, except now I'm sitting in front of the camera. So, I encourage that. And it's also something that I have really wanted to do for a long time, which is to put together a series for kids. Because while we're talking about all of this and people putting those limitations around what they have the ability to do, the real loss in education comes in us really actually understanding what money is and what its full function is. And, it really is. It used to be when we were on a gold standard, it takes labor and energy and effort to pull the gold out of the ground. So when we were on a gold standard, then we were being fairly paid labor versus labor. But that wasn't good for government. So they had to transition us into ultimately a fully debt-based system. But when you stop and think about the benefit to governments is their ability to tax you invisibly, almost invisibly through inflation. And honestly, anybody, yep, Jekyll Island, absolutely. And anybody that really thinks there is not even 2% inflation, I'm sorry. You need more education, because they just tweak things. They don't change behavior. They tweak, right, the way they're reporting it and how they're managing it. So I think that's the biggest thing, is understanding that we have agreed to accept debt in exchange for our labor. And coming up, I don't even know what that means. They're talking about, I don't know that this is going to happen, but they're talking about actually basing the GDP off of contracts. How many contracts can be written?
Lots.
Can you get that?
Well, my biggest fear is the great reset that's coming up. They're trying to get us to go 100% digital, which I'm not in favor of. So I try to educate people as much as possible as well on what the intentions are of the great reset. So I tell them, look, what you got to do is not pay attention so much to what they say, pay attention to what they do. And when you see JP Morgan and all of them go, oh, gold is no good, invest in risky assets, blah, blah, blah. But then they turn around and they move their portfolio holdings from 5 to 20% of gold and gold minor stocks. You know what I mean? It's like, what does that tell you? Or when they start pumping, cryptocurrencies all of a sudden now. And I think the reason why they're doing it is because the scarcity of both gold and silver at the moment, if you look at the stress on the comics, I think they're trying to figure out a way to push people away from gold and silver as much as possible so that they can gobble up as much as possible. Lynette, I know you know about this because I heard you speak about this. I told everybody when this thing happened in Cyprus, I said, you guys, this is a test case. Everybody's like, no. I go, no, this isn't. You got to understand that they do this type of thing. When I say they, well, I'm just talking about the elites. They will pick something that they want to do and they will test it. And I told everybody what I learned from Cyprus is I don't hold my money in the bank at all. I will hold 6 months worth of expenses plus 10% for miscellaneous. Everything else is in precious metals. I have no stocks, no bonds, nothing whatsoever. And when I try to explain that to people, they have a hard time understanding it. Am I going too far? Am I thinking, or what do you think?
Oh, no. Actually, I'm right along with you on that, and pretty much that percentage as well. And I do not, and I'm an ex-stockbroker, so I understand this stuff really well. And I do not own a stock. I do not own a bond. I do not own an annuity. I have a term life insurance policy just to clear up any debt so my kids do not have to touch my gold and my silver in case, God forbid, poi. I mean, I don't think so. So don't worry about it. I think I'll be on the planet for a very long time, but no, I'm right there with you, because the test in Cyprus was to check out the bail-in. And just like what's happening now, is so many things are, history just repeats itself.
Nothing's new under the sun.
Exactly. And this time is different. When you hear those words, you got to know it's not different. And I'm also definitely in agreement with you that, the powers that be want us to go completely digital. But what just happened, yesterday or the day before with that software, which I don't have it in front of me. So when where all over the world, there was a hack, and the only way to stop it is to shut the system down. And how about the Google outage?
They're not the only one.
Right.
Coinbase, where you buy your cryptocurrencies, will feed right into this. But every time the stock market starts to crash and crypto starts to drop, magically these websites close down. So meanwhile, you're trying to get in to stop the bleeding. You can't get in. It just keeps depleting your money. So if that's happening now, what
that's happening in
happens
the
when
stock
you
markets?
Huh?
That's all happening currently in the stock markets. I mean, we're seeing that same
Robin
exact
Hood,
thing.
it happened to in July. But I mean, Coinbase 3 times this year when we've seen huge drops.
How many times did they do the kill switch this year?
Yeah.
On the stock markets. I mean, that's
28 times.
It's been quite often that they've just shut off trading on the complete world stock trades or everything.
Right.
So nothing digital. I'm not interested at all. Nothing whatsoever. I mean, I live in California. I live in the Red Hills. I used to live in the city, and I said, no, I got the heck out of there. I mean, me and my father bought this house together a while ago, and unfortunately in 2013 he passed away. So I've been in it ever since. But we're in the Red Hills, so our whole community is very gun ho, literally Second Amendment, constitutional loving patriots. So everybody's always let's be prepared for but they're also heavy into gold and silver, because we're I think the first settlement in California for the gold rush. So they're really into that. Their history's here. Lynette, I really love your idea, by the way, of teaching children at a young age, putting something together. I think that's a great idea, by the way.
Oh yeah, because I see my grandkids, and they're, they range in age from 5 to 14. And they certainly know a whole lot more. And especially the oldest one, who's a boy, he is, since I'm on YouTube and since my channel hit 100,000 viewer or subscribers.
Congratulations.
118,000.
Right. But so now he kind of looks at me a lot differently. Than he did. And he's a lot more interested in what I have to say about all of this, because otherwise we just fall right into the trap that the elites have in mind for us.
Yeah.
And, I mean, let's face it, the system has to reset. What that is going to look like on the other side of it is really anybody's guess.
Yeah.
I mean, the currency system, I think it's going to be a global currency with the SDR, special drawing rights from the IMF, as a global currency, and then a bunch of local ones. But boy, I feel so strongly that even though we're going to have the digital central bank money and we're going to be connected and we're going to do all of that, you need to hold wealth that's outside of the system that you can convert into that new currency so that you can hold your wealth intact. The other thing that I like to bring up, Pimpy, too, and just kind of add to this is, as an investor, what I'm always looking for is an undervalued asset that is in a long-term positive trend. But with Wall Street, if they make the markets look like they're going up in nominal terms, at the same time that you see the dollar losing massive value in real terms, the real trend is what's happening in the dollar, not what's happening in the stock market.
Yes.
Let me ask you real quick, since we're talking about the dollar, with the idea that Biden is our president-elect, especially with the Electoral College. I mean, we're not really sure how things are going to turn out in the Supreme Court. I'm not sure if it's done and over with, but if Biden is the president-elect, he is appointing Janet Yellen as the head of the Treasury, and she used to be Fed chair. So is that kind of marrying the two together in a way?
Absolutely.
Is this part of the Great Reset plan that, is the long game that's going on here in the United States?
Sure looks like it.
And how do you think
Biden's presidential slogan was "Build Back Better"? That comes from the Great Reset. There's politicians around the world. You can see behind them, it says "Build Back Better." We just watched Justin Trudeau tell his people we must give in to the Great Reset. Joe Biden now is saying something about the Great Reset. And for those of you, even though I have videos about them, for those of you who are unaware, the Great Reset, whether you call them the Illuminati or New World Order, because when you use those words, people automatically go, oh, that's tinfoil hat stuff. Well,
Right.
whether you believe in them or not, it doesn't matter. Call them the elites, call them globalists. But you have to pay attention to this thing called the Great Reset. And I'm very happy to see more and more people around the world bringing that up as a red flag. But yeah, they want to go 100% digital.
George Gammon does a really great video on the Great Reset that I would encourage people to check out. And after this, I'll have it linked down below as well.
Well, real quick, I want to just wrap up finally at the end of that, because I kind of veered from it. The bail-in, Lynette, in your opinion, so we just talked about what you and I do. So if you were to make a suggestion to people, you know, how to protect themselves from the bail-in, what would they do?
Well, they would keep a certain amount of cash. I mean, really, obviously, it's the same pattern that you and I are doing. You have to keep, like, I'm running a business, so it's not like I can pull all of the cash out, and that's still our tool of barter for the moment anyway. So you can't really pull 100% out. You keep a certain level in there, so you have your auto withdrawals, you can pay your bills, whatever. But for me personally, I keep a certain level of what the IMF calls cash in the wild out, as well as my barterable silver, because for me, that's what silver is. It's about barterability. And then my barterable gold, as well as my collectible gold for converting into income producing assets when they are severely undervalued, like gold and silver is now. And, you know, I also like to point out to people, gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. So when you're talking about how people can accumulate for years, when I go to estate sales, I'm always looking at the silver. Do I care if it's bent or broken or dinged? Heck no, I don't care.
I got silverware galore.
Exactly. If it's Mark Sterling, it's 92.5% pure, right? So you know, I have picture frames, I have chopsticks, I have I don't even know what they are. Right?
I have dice.
Right. And interestingly, I'll tell you too, back in March and April, when it was so hard to get, you know, silver and gold in the, you know, in the normal markets, I actually went online to some auction houses and bought some sterling silver there. And they give you the weight. I mean, I'm just telling people how they can do it at an affordable level, right? You know, if you've got the weight, then you can calculate out what it should be, you know, nearish there in retail. And when you can buy it for far less, because they don't realize that it's monetary at its base, rock and roll hoochie coo, right?
I love that you say that. I teach people how to do coin hunting. I tell them, go to the 50-cent pieces. This is what you do. You'd be surprised. Now, where I live right now, everybody and their mother knows to do it. So it's really hard. But I had a couple of people show me their rolls, and they open them up, and they got like the Benjamin 50-cent pieces in there, which are 90% silver. They have the, the Joaquin Liberty or
Liberties. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are in there. You know, in 1964 and older, anything in dimes, quarters, 50-cent pieces, you know, these are all 90% silver. But the one area I tell people to check for, that so many people miss, 1965 through 1970 50-cent pieces have 42%, is that right? 42% silver in there, and you'll find those all the time. Lynette, are 401ks and IRAs protected from a bail-in?
You know, it's easy to change the laws. And when Cyprus did the bail-in back in 2013, right after that, we saw a number of countries, including Poland and Russia, that went in and they've talked about it in this country too, doing what they call a one-off trade, where they would go in and they would tax you. In this country, they talked about 11.6%. And the reason why they position it as a one-off is because they don't want you to change your behavior. And they say that if they believe you're only going to do it once, then people will continue to contribute. So they might not call it a bail-in, but we've seen governments do that. And not, we're not talking about ancient history. And
recently.
yeah. And by the way, too, even when you say that, now, of course, you can do physical bullion inside of an IRA.
Yes.
However, just having people make that deposit and having Wall Street choose how to invest in these risky assets or instruments that they know nothing about with the declining value in the currency, aren't they kind of already being bailed in?
Yeah, that's funny you should mention it. Absolutely. People say, well, how much should I convert over, Pimpy? I said, look, if it's just my opinion, if you convert 25, 30% of it, of your IRA or 401ks into physical gold and silver, if nothing happens, the money's still there. You can sell that anytime you want. But if something should happen and all your stuff is lost its value in a bail-in or market crash, most likely your physical gold and silver are going to go up, and whatever you lost will be compensated. But you want to have that type of holding. When I see these people, these billionaires and these hedge funds moving from 5% into at least 20% physical gold and silver in their portfolio, that tells me I should be at least thinking the same thing. You know what I mean?
Totally. And, even aside from the hedge funds, look at what the central banks are doing for themselves in most cases. And that's presuming they're even being honest with us, which, I wouldn't believe that. So
wait, Lynette, I know you heard this story. It's funny you should say that. When they said the Rockefellers are doing away with gold and silver, they're no longer going to be involved. Did you see that article? I was like, what the hell is this article? Who are they fooling? I think they have an estate that they've owned for like 260 years, and which there's a vault underneath it that holds tons of gold. What do you mean you're doing away with gold? I don't believe that at all.
Well, I don't either. And really, when you're talking about a Rockefeller or the Queen of England, etc., what you're really talking about is dynastic wealth. Yeah. That is wealth that lasts in families at least 300 years. And it has three components, only three, so it makes it easy. Real estate, rare collectibles, and not because of Franklin Mint says it's a collectible, but really rare collectibles, and gold. And arguably, gold is the single most important component. I mean, you could do all three with gold as well, but with gold, that has never, ever, ever, ever gone to zero. Right? Yes. So you can accumulate the other two, which is part of the strategy that I'm executing for myself, is just based on those repeatable patterns, historic patterns, where you can accumulate the kind of wealth that you can never outlive, like the Rockefellers. Or
no, I love it.
So, no, yeah.
No, so I was talking. I ended up in this little chat. We did this interview, and there was a couple of people. They're really millionaires, and my friend said, "Our friends are millionaires. How much money do you think they have in a bank?" And I was like, "I don't think they have any money in a bank." I said, "If anything, they have their money invested in precious metals. A lot of it's probably in risky stocks, bonds, the whole 9 yards. But the other things are like rare paintings, rare sculptures, stuff like that. And probably at their house, they probably hold X amount in dollars." And they both started laughing. I thought, wow, did I say something wrong? The guy's like, no, actually, you hit it right on the money. He goes, we don't trust the banks. And so we put it into assets that accumulate in value. Paintings, sculptures, rare coins. I mean, this is what they do. They don't trust the banks whatsoever. And they use the banks like you and I were just talking about. You put very minimal in there. And then, you use it for just your bills. The other trick question they got me on, I wonder if you know this question. What is the number one vehicle for millionaires? Now, the kind of millionaire I'm talking about is people who have actually earned it, not transformational wealth, not you won the lottery, but somebody who was poor and earned the wealth, which was a funny question that was asked. And I was surprised by the answer. Do you know, by the way?
Well, I know what it is for myself.
What's that?
You know, I mean, it definitely by a lion's share, most of my wealth is in gold, physical gold. And
No,
then real estate.
I was just saying, my friend asked me, do you know what the number one vehicle is? Like a car, like truck or car. And I was like, no, it's, yeah,
no,
like what is the,
it's not going to be a schmancy, fancy car for sure.
No, an F-150 pickup truck is the number one choice of millionaires. I thought that was shocking.
I have one. I have one for the farm.
No, I just was looking at one the other day. Yeah, absolutely. They said because of the they do their homework, they see the reliability. Anyways, I'm sorry, guys, sidetracked, but that's funny.
Yeah, my son-in-law knows vehicles, so that's why when I needed a farm truck, that's
150. Lynette, when it comes to the billing, how many people are going to be protected by the FDIC insurance?
Nobody's really going to be protected by the FDIC.
That's what I warned them about.
They have no money in there.
It would bankrupt the country.
Right. You know, and actually in 2008, according to their own documentation, they were just one small default away from everybody realizing that they were way out of money. So this is why they're working so hard on preventing those bank runs. I mean, look at what happened with the M1 supply, the cash supply. And, you know, they had all these central bankers go out and saying, yeah, this is not a big deal. We'll just print more. We'll print as much of it as you want. And when you look at the chart on where the money supply is, I mean, it's exponential. It is absolutely straight up. Interestingly enough, they also are talking that they did not like the run on money markets, excuse me, in March. So they're looking at making the rules guiding money markets, which most people think of like as checking account or a savings account, right? They're talking about making those rules even more strict than they did after the debacle in 2008.
It almost seems like they're looking for ways to trap people into their holdings. In other words, you know, maybe then you can only take X. I'm surprised this isn't out yet, that if something happens, you're only allowed by law to take X amount of dollars out of your bank. You know, something like that. You know, I'm surprised there aren't these types of things yet, things that will prevent people from trying to save their money in case a huge crash comes. All my stuff, I'd say like 95% of all my wealth is in precious metals. It is and always has been for a long time. I just don't trust, one, I don't trust banks. Two, I don't trust our government. And so it sounds crazy, but because of those two things, is the way I think along the lines when it comes to precious metals, by the way. Yeah.
Well, you know, and I would really agree with you because I don't trust those entities anyway, because I read so much what they're saying and I look at so much of what they're doing. And I'm right there with you guys, you know, and I tell people all the time, you don't have to know all of the complications around all of this garbage because those are intentionally done so that you look at it and you go, oh, well, okay, they're so smart. They understand this mess, although they really don't understand the unintended consequences and they make things so complicated. But gold and silver are really simple. You hold it, you own it outright, and it has the broadest base of buyer. So there is always a market for it.
Worldwide.
Maybe higher, maybe lower, but there's always a market for it. This is not rocket science. It's actually super simple. Where do you want to hold your wealth? In something that is completely liquid because there's lots and lots of buyers for it, or something that's illiquid? And I don't know, it seems like the call about illiquidity in the markets seems to be rising again, even after the trillions and trillions of new money that global central banks have pumped into the markets.
They're saying the same thing about in the cryptocurrency market. The same thing it's experiencing right now. They're trying to say because of the supply and demand that the exchanges are, you know, their numbers are really off, and they're trying to get their numbers more on par as to what the actual liquidity is because it's drying up in the crypto market. Like Just there's 900 Bitcoin minted daily by the way that the proof of work system works. And right now between Cash App, PayPal, and Grayscale, they're purchasing more than being made daily.
Yeah.
So that supply and demand thing is going to start coming into factor because it is finite and it is limited. So, and you're also seeing a lot of fake volume on the exchanges. It's like fractional reserve banking on all the exchanges.
How can you
that's
tell
what makes me worried about cryptos.
Somebody had a question, and I kind of wanted to highlight this, and it reminded me of something else as well. Max Frost was asking if, well, this wasn't the question. Hold on a second. I apologize. It was in regards to the 1930 bills. Does anybody know if the 1930s, the pre-1930s dollars would be redeemable for gold? And the question I really had was, things like silver certificates and gold certificates, are they in any sense redeemable right now at the Federal Reserve, or are they?
Oh, that's a good question, Lynette. I was going to ask you about that myself. I just watched a video that not that long ago where this guy said if you still own gold certificates or silver certificates, that these Federal Reserve banks that we have are obligated by an old law to exchange it. So the gold coins, they had the $10 gold coins, the $20 gold coins. So I have tons of gold because I'm a collector too. Tons of crisp gold certificates, and this person saying, "Oh yeah, you can still walk down to the bank and exchange it and get that $10 gold coin that it was meant to exchange for." And I was like, I never heard of that, and I was going to call up, but I spaced it. Do you know anything about that? Is that still redeemable?
It is my understanding that you can no longer redeem those certificates into the physical metal directly, but they typically will have, depending upon the condition, etc., they will have more value than their face value as a collectible. So in that way, you can convert them because you can convert it into the current fiat currency and then convert that into the physical gold or physical silver. But, why would you want to convert a certificate that has a face value of $20 if in currently today's market, maybe it has a market value of 150?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the collectible value, depending on the condition, could be really high. But my thought is, where I live, again, it's one of the original first settlements for the gold rush. You got a lot of people selling some damaged ones. I thought, you're trying to tell me I could go buy them dirt cheap, run to the San Francisco Federal Reserve, take my $10 gold one, and get that $10 gold coin? I said it would have seemed to me there would have been a rush on that a long time ago.
And I would have thought that what Nixon did with the Nixon shock would have been what really killed all of that 100%. I mean, I think that 1930 with the gold, like in the 30s,
well, he stopped the gold standard, but I don't know if he stopped that from happening.
No, but what he did do, interestingly enough, in 1965, he did declare that gold, and this might be where they thought that this was a possibility or probability, because he did legalize gold certificates, though they were not convertible into physical gold. And he did that in 1965 at $35 an ounce. Of course, how many people do you think actually knew that or understood that? Just those that helped create the law.
Yeah,
and I think
some of these things go under the radar.
Pardon?
I said some of these things go under the radar. People won't catch them.
So much goes under. Are you kidding me? I would say probably 98% of this stuff goes under the radar, and it's just the 2% that they want you to know about.
Yes.
Right? That they make visible, because this is all about perception management. It's just like what's happening with LIBOR.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there was that huge huge. If you're looking at a $640 trillion notional value derivatives market, maybe 80 trillion isn't that big. But, dead
No, I have that in my bank.
Pardon?
Just kidding. I said that's in my bank. No, I was just kidding.
There you go. Well, you should convert that into gold and silver. It won't move the market, right? Central banks buying gold doesn't really move the market, does it? The big run on gold barely
how do you
moves
think that
the market, really.
we knew about that transfer? I mean, I think we all managed to call it the Big Bang. I call it the Big Bang, and then so they said Lynette's calling it the Big Bang. I go, yeah, see, great minds think alike. But people, it didn't really look like it had an effect. I go, yeah, but do you guys understand it actually failed? And a lot of people don't know that. But now there's a deadline. Yeah, there's a deadline for December 2021. So what does that mean?
I really wanted to talk about this today because the fact that it was so dead silent, I kept saying that means that it had to have been a huge failure. If it was a success, then they would be talking about what a great success. And then, of course, they came out. And so, okay, a couple little contracts are still going to go away by December 31st of 2021. But the ones that are attached to the US dollar are going to remain viable until 2023. So that tells you they're having trouble making this transition. And we knew that this was going to be a problem. I mean, these benchmark interest rates, the LIBORs, all the IBORs are embedded into so many contracts. And when you have entities like, the ECB committee, special committee to study this, or there's coming out, and they really don't talk about this very much because they really don't want to bring that up to your vision. They'd rather you look at Airbnb exploding, 150% as it comes out of the chute, even though it's never made a profit. I mean, it's certainly more valuable than Marriott hotels, for goodness sakes. But, this is really what they want you to look at because they don't know how to do this. And, so they'll come out and say, well, yeah, that shouldn't be a big deal. And by the way, they're talking about it in terms of money markets. And this is why they want to go back for more money market reforms, because these will have an impact on what they call risk-free assets that are held short-term in these money market funds. And that's been breaking down since a year ago, last September.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was the same time we seen the repo markets and everything kind of going on. That was kind of that. And then earlier that year, we seen the inverted yield curve, which is all pointing towards the things that we had.
I told everybody that was a huge warning when you seen that. People don't understand what that means. 100% of the time when it happens.
100% recession is coming within usually a year. So Lynette,
let's see, what was that date? Because I think it was spot on to March.
Yeah, I think it was March. I think it was March of last year, but I'm not 100% sure. I can try to look it up.
The U.S. yield curve inverted on December 4th of 2018. 2018.
I thought it was 2019. Okay.
2019? No, because we're in 2020 now. No, it was 2018.
Okay.
And typically it's 12 to 18 months. There's that window when you can expect a recession. So what is that? December to December is 12 months. And then, then March hit.
Yeah, you're right on point. It was December. It was late 2018. So yeah.
It was,
so we're talking about June of 2021. Is that what it is? Is when?
No.
Let's see. Oh, sorry. Yeah. We did it. We hit
it. It's not something that's what people really need to understand. It used to be we would talk about these things in the future, and we would talk about the reset in the future. And I can remember when I would say it like in my opening line, to survive and thrive, the reset,
the coming reset.
And people say, well, don't call it that. Don't say that, because it's not. It's like, don't tell me this, because I've been doing this on some level since I was 10 years old. Seriously. I have been groomed for this moment in time.
Well, if they don't do a reset, then how does the LIBOR come into play? If they don't do some sort of reset before the end of 2021, how does the LIBOR come into play with affecting the economic as far as it's concerned globally?
Well, when you're talking about that, then we have to look at the ISDA, which is that self-regulatory body that creates this mess, manages this mess, and can deem when something is a default or not on this mess. And the head of the ISDA actually came out and said, this is our opportunity to restructure the entire global financial system. And I am sure that's going off without a hitch.
They're great reset.
What they're doing.
Now, would you mind explaining exactly what LIBOR rates are for people who are unfamiliar?
Sure. LIBOR rates, they were created, the IBORs are interbank offer rate. And LIBOR is the London interbank offer rate. These are a benchmark that was created by Wall Street in the 1980s, and it is a stated rate. In other words, it's not based on actual market behavior. It's based on a handful of banks coming together and saying, well, if I was going to loan somebody money overnight, this is what I would want to charge. Or if I was going to borrow money overnight, this is what I would be willing to pay. So it is a stated rate, not a real market rate. And shockingly, it was discovered, it was leaked, really. That's, if it wasn't leaked, I'm telling you, we wouldn't know yet. But it was leaked that traders were using this to manipulate the rates in the market for their personal, for gains, for the corporation. Shocker, right?
Oh, yeah.
One firm would call up the other one and go, oh, let's do this today. Oh, let's do that today. I mean, it's all documented, you know, so anybody can see it.
Like a form of spoofing, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's all a form of spoofing. Wall Street is a complete form of spoofing.
JP is the spoofing masters.
Right. And this morning, I'm listening to CNBC as I'm getting ready, and you know, valuations, that's old. That they don't matter anymore. Well, no, they don't matter anymore. Look at them. Valuations mean nothing. But that's really the opportunity, because what we know, I mean, I am staking everything on this. There's not one little itty bitty doubt in my mind. But what goes up must come down. And this is just a tool to keep people distracted.
Yes.
Because we've been taught that if the markets are okay, the economy is okay, but the economy is not okay.
No, as we talked about before, I mean, when you're seeing all-time highs in the stock market and you're seeing record numbers of unemployment, you should know something is seriously wrong and reality is broken.
Well, artificially pumped, the stocks are going up, gold and silver are going down. There's something wrong there. It's seriously manipulated. Both markets are. And I think what they're trying to do is convince people to invest in risky assets that you might come up versus get rid of gold and silver. You don't need it. Meanwhile, they're gobbling up all the gold and silver and selling off all their risky assets is what it looks like to me.
Well, that is actually really what is happening. But, you know, when they create, same thing happened in the 20s for the kickoff to this great experiment.
The roaring 20s?
The roaring 20s. They could create so much, 2.5 times the amount of money inside the system just by changing how much gold backed the dollar. And so happy days are here again. And the little guys, I mean, this is really an indication what's happening in Robinhood and also in the 1990s. You know, as a stockbroker, I would be glued to my desk and somebody would call up and we would do a trade and I would write that ticket, right? It was a physical paper ticket, and I would write that ticket and I would run as fast as I could to the window where I would drop that ticket and they would execute the trade. Well, in the late 90s, that was just the start of the technology where you could go and start to buy stocks and bypass that whole process. And so we saw what happened with the NASDAQ and the NASDAQ bubble. Well, now technology has evolved so much that, you know, and people are addicted to it. They know how to embed those pieces in the algorithms that you addicted. right? And you probably experienced, both you guys probably experienced something similar to me as I was launching, and all of a sudden I was getting all of these views. And I mean, I didn't probably sleep for 3 months because I had to constantly check that. Thank God I don't do that anymore. But, I felt
or
like
some of us have gotten spanked for
What?
mentioning things that some of us have gotten spanked by YouTube for mentioning things we shouldn't. I'm one of them. Yeah, I tend to be politically driven. That's why I got two YouTube channels now. One I talk about investments, the other one strictly current events, because if you combine the two, it's not fair to those individuals who tune in to listen about gold and silver, and then all of a sudden you're off the air for 1 week or however much they want to punish you for. Then I want to ask you something, because people ask me this all the time. I'm thinking, I was about ready to buy a house, and what do you think? I always say, look, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an expert, but this is just my opinion. Right now is a really bad time to buy real estate. I think if you just wait a little longer, you could pick up that same property for about, I don't know, 50, 60% of its value. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, you're not wrong, because clearly, again, we are in a bifurcated economy. So we have this massive wave in January, and then after that are coming up as the mortgage moratorium lifts and the evictions moratorium lift. And so when you see all of that supply come onto the market, and also, but a lot of these things have been artificially floated. I mean, the things that they were doing where you could close on a house and not have it appraised for 120 days after you closed, you could buy a property and immediately go into a year-long moratorium, because Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae would buy that contract, that mortgage contract. So as these artificial and even the low interest rates. So there's a part of me that agrees with you an absolute 100% on that. For those that can't wait, because you do need to have a place to make your last stand. If we're talking speculative because you're thinking about flipping it, then I got to tell you 100%, this is the wrong time to do that. But when we were talking earlier about the holes in my system, the reason why I didn't do what you did by moving out really far was really because of my children and my grandchildren, because they wouldn't have gone with me. And, they're the most important.
It's your life.
Things, but
thank God my children and grandchildren came with me. So I'm grateful, but I understand, or I probably would have had a hard time leaving.
Exactly. So I had determined that this is where I was going to make my last stand. But when March hit and the protests hit, and I slept in my bed one night with a gun by my side, and I thought, there's my hole. I don't have a bug out property. So
Wait, explain that, because people are going to go, what is a bug out property?
Well,
if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. That is a place where I can go that is remote, not completely isolated, but remote if I'm uncomfortable with what's happening here, because I live in the middle of Phoenix.
Someplace off grid.
Someplace off grid, exactly. That has everything that I've done here: the food, the water, the energy, the security, etc. Everything that I've done here. So that's what I call my bug out house, is someplace where I can go that's big enough for not just my children and my family, but actually remote enough and large enough that I can create my own little group there, and we can work together to sustain the gardens and sustain everything and to help protect
community. It's so important. I try to tell people that.
Lynette and Pimpy, I'll tell you guys both about this real quick, just for you to check it out later. But there's a guy named Derek Broze, Broze. He's part of a channel called Conscience Resistance, and he's created something called Freedom Cells, where you're creating small communities and building bigger communities and basically everything that kind of goes in your motto, Lynette, is kind of like wrapped up in this Freedom Cells idea. It's a really, really powerful idea where they're forming communities and helping one another in that community aspect. Because I know that's one of the things that you talk about in your motto is that community is probably one of the most important parts of the whole equation.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, here's the thing I think that people are missing. I heard Lynette talk about this. It starts with, first of all, have you had that conversation yet with your family? You know what I mean? The planning of what if, and then are you starting to talk to the people, your own neighbors? Most of us don't even know our neighbors. It isn't like in the 70s.
Paper. Lynette gets her neighbors get her extra vegetables. Lynette's neighbors, I'm pretty sure, know her very well.
Yeah, my neighbors, I think a lot of them think I'm the crazy lady. I met one recently, you know, and they're like, oh, we were always wondering who lived in that house. We thought you were just the crazy lady. I said, well, you know, there's probably people that would agree with you.
You're a crazy lady now, but the genius later on, you know what I mean? It doesn't
I that's why I've always been, you know, a fan of your work. I respect what you do. I mean, the time that you spent in these markets looking as a banker, as a stock market, as studying world currencies, I know that you're like one of the go-to people that can look at a chart, read things. And I mean, that's why you're known as Data Gal.
Exactly.
The reason why that name is stuck with you.
Professor Zang, that's what I call her. I kid you not. I said, if I had Pimpy University, trust me, Lynette Zang would be my gold and silver professor, because she has this way. She takes things that are complicated for people to understand and she makes it as simplistic as possible. I do the same thing, but she does it on a whole other level. That's why I love her to death, man. Absolutely. But
I have seriously been working on that for so long, and I don't know that I'm always 100% successful, but I do know that I always 100% I try. And I just feel like over time I'll get better and better and better at it, you know, and that's what this community is all about, is helping all of us get better and better.
Well, let me show you how small, let me tell you how small my town is. This is how, you got to love this. So when the whole riots and the looting was happening, somebody that lives in our town that's on Facebook, who's supportive of the BLM movement, said, hey, we live in this town. You guys should come up here and protest. Well, the town's small. We heard about this. So we heard people are going to come from the city and come disrupt our little town. So the sheriff called a meeting with everybody. I'm going to show you how small and how great this community is. So the sheriff had us all out there, and people filmed this. And the sheriff said, look, I'm just going to be honest. There's not enough of us to protect you guys from what we think might be coming. So as a sheriff, I'm just going to come out and tell you now, you guys have the right to do whatever it takes to protect your family and your property. Do you understand me? We're like, yes, sir. We showed up to the rally with our guns. They behaved themselves very, very well there, and then they left. So that's how it's a small community, and they are not playing when it comes to stuff like that.
That's really good. I do want to finish talking about the property and the time to buy the property.
Yeah.
So, you know, just to kind of clarify it, because I think that anybody that buys a property right now at the height of the market without the ability to pay it off could be in seriously deep doo-doo. So I could have just paid cash for this property. I could have converted my gold and paid cash for it. That is not something that I would be willing to do, because gold is undervalued and on its way up. The real estate is overvalued and on its way down. But even buying at the top of the market, keeping this, I know that I have enough gold in the reset, right? And what happens in a reset is the government will revalue the fiat in terms of gold, and then gold will move somewhere near its fundamental value. At that moment, so if you're watching me, you'll know when I do it, because I'll let you guys know. I will capture the gains from this gold and I will pay that mortgage off. But because interest rates are so low, it's kind of like I'm getting this for nothing. And that, because I've got the gold over here to offset the mortgage, it's like I'm not really paying that much for the house. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, you're
Yes.
playing the system the smart way. It's
Okay.
building your credit up by using the credit card and paying the balance off before it's actually due, and not having to pay any interest on it.
Lynette, do you ever
Exactly.
see it? Lynette, do you ever see a time where silver passes gold in value?
Nominally or otherwise, no.
Considering the
Anything can
commercial
happen.
uses and everything else that's going on. I told people I thought within the next 10 years, if we do this whole green plan and everything else, with everybody trying to go solar, everything else going on, there's a scarcity in silver. I wouldn't be surprised if I seen silver. Now, gold will never come down to the value of silver. Silver will go up to the value of gold. But I said there's a good chance that we're going to see silver actually pass up gold in value. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
History would not support that. Even going through hyperinflationary history doesn't support that. So I'm not of that mind. But you also have to understand that gold is the primary currency metal. And chances are pretty good, presuming a repetition of history, I'll say that because it's happened 100% of the time.
Yeah.
When enough confidence is lost, like you said, I don't trust the government, I don't trust the banks. Well, that confidence has been declining for a long time now, and it's really on very thin ice. So when complete loss of confidence in the currency and the system happens, then they're going to use the gold and it's not going to go, we're not going to ever probably be 100% backed, but they're going to take a percentage of gold to back the new currency to get people to trust it and use it again. And then they'll do the same thing. They'll start to remove it and all of that over time. But it's really for that reason, as a key monetary metal, that I don't think in nominal terms you'll see silver go above gold, because gold has, both of them, so both silver and gold have an extremely broad base of buyer. Silver gets used up in manufacturing. Gold is recoverable, which is why it's the primary currency metal, or, one of the reasons why. So, anything is possible, but that would mean this time would be different. And I don't really think this time is ever different.
Yeah.
Lynette, on the debt clock, I'm sure you've looked at it. People always ask me, what do we see? I said before, now I'm not to drop his name, but before Trump was in there, we used to see the debt clock reflect whatever gold and silver market values were. But then all of a sudden it's changed. In your opinion, when we look at the gold and silver values to the dollars on the debt clock, does that, in your opinion, reflect a more accurate value of gold and silver where it should be?
Absolutely, it does, because there's a finite amount of both gold and silver. Anything physical, there's a finite amount of it, but with the ability to create money with the push of a button, there's an infinite, and they're using it. There's an infinite amount. So yes, that definitely does reflect more of the fundamental value, which is why it makes so much sense to be accumulating now, both gold and silver at whatever level that you can, really.
I tell people it's like taking a beach ball and holding it underneath the water. Eventually, it's going to pop up. They're doing everything they can to hold down the value of gold and silver, but they try every trick in the book, and eventually the tricks are going to run out, and it's just going to pop up. What's it say right now?
Eventually what will happen is they will need it to express to its fundamental value. Whether they could lose control of those tricks or they maintain, that's what we don't know. How long can they keep control? Yeah. As less and less people have confidence, or fewer and fewer people have confidence in them and in the system, then, it becomes more and more important for them to reset that valuation, and they will use the gold to do it, because that's the way they've done it for 6,000 years, over 4,800 times. So, could this time be different? Well, I suppose it's beyond my control, but it's not likely. And yes, I do think the debt clock, look, in this country, it was in 2006 that they took away the M3 supply, which would have been more reflective of how much money they're showing us, but that they're growing, but they do not want us to know that. And that was 2006. Could that have possibly been in anticipation of what was going to be happening in 2008?
No, not at all.
No, oh no, that was just a coincidence.
You're a crazy lady,
know.
Lynette.
I mean, do you think that might have even had something to do with the 2005 change in the bankruptcy laws that put holders of derivatives to the head of the line in case of corporate bankruptcy? I mean, you know, so you look at what they do, and really, when I saw this, I had done a little study. And it was looking at the laws on gold and silver, but looking at them going current to back. And you get a completely different perspective of it when you do it that way. Because what I really saw, and I would say this is true for all of the legal wrangling, is that it never mattered who was in office, that every law that came out built on the one that was put in place before. And it kind of reminded me of with kids. And you say, now you stay in that room and don't you dare step one toe outside of that room until I tell you. Well, as soon as you turn your back, you know what they're doing. They're stepping their toes out. And if you don't catch them then, they're stepping them out further. I remember Megan, you know, she was in her room and I'm sitting at the table on the phone, and all of a sudden I look over and she's got a black marker on the wall, right? That's how far she got out of her room. And it's the same kind of thing with all of these laws. So kind of going back to the money market, but and going back to what you said earlier about the ability or restricting the ability to take as much money as you want out of the accounts, you still have limits if you go to an ATM. And I don't know, has anybody tried to get a hold of their bank on the phone lately?
Yeah, remember Cyprus, they closed the banks down and people flooded the ATMs and the ATMs were out of money in no time. But then the days after that, what I didn't like was these long lines at the ATM and not everybody got money. And then when they did open the door to the bank, they told them you're only allowed to take X. And no, this is your money. And people, here's something that I would love for you to talk about. People don't understand that when you deposit your money into the bank, it's no longer yours. I mean, it is, but the bank actually takes control of that. And people know it is. I can go and take it out. I go, no, if something happens, the bank uses your money. You've surrendered your money to the bank. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're right. It's called the sweep laws that they also put in place. The 90s they were very busy. But, you know, you have to understand that they were, the banks were facing a kind of a liquidity crisis because they weren't doing then what they're doing now with just pushing the button and giving them so much money. But they saw all this money in deposits. So they created sweep accounts. So you make a deposit into your account, they sweep it into a sub account that is actually in the bank's name, and then the bank can use that any way as collateral or any way that they deem fit. And, you know, you don't know about it.
Well, we give them permission. Isn't that what it is?
Absolutely, because what happens is you get this little teeny glossy thing, or you can go online and you can see it for yourself, that as long as you continue to utilize this account, you have agreed to this. You've agreed to it. Who reads those fine? There's a reason why they make them itty bitty and tiny, right?
Yes.
Because people just gloss over. It's the same thing with any of these contracts.
The same thing with social media platforms. You're like, whatever, just get on. And you don't realize that you're signing away your life practically is what it is, you know.
You're signing away your rights, and you're signing, and look, haven't we become a surveillance economy? And it's not the crops and it's not what we make. It's the data about us so that they can sell us more goods and services because we are a consumer-driven economy. We don't make anything anymore. We just kind of wash what's already out there. And, that's really not good for growth.
Lynette, in your opinion, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that there is this beautiful graphic that comes from the late 1800s, and I can't, the artist escapes me for a moment, but popular. And it shows on one side people chasing bubbles, and on the other side, people that are hardworking and they're plowing the fields and they're creating things and they're doing all of that. And it's not any different, right? People are chasing these bubbles that the central banks and the governments have created to keep you busy over here while they're making all of these changes over here. And frankly, too, I wanted to say this, Pimpy, but the system died in 2008. It died.
Yep.
And the central banks put it on life support. But does anybody remember when you could go and just deposit cash into your kids' accounts? Because when my kids were in college, that's what I would do. Mm-hmm. I would go, and they didn't live here. So I would just go deposit the money into their accounts, cash into their accounts. Well, you can't do that anymore.
Nope.
You can deposit it in your personal account, but you can't. So, and that's just one example. But frankly, since 2008, they have been making our choices regarding banking more and more and more and more narrow.
Yeah.
How do you catch a wild boar? Every day you go out there first, wide open field, you put some food there, they keep going to it. After a week, they get used to it. You put up a fence, they kind of stay away for a minute, but then they come and eat the food because that's what they're used to. They've gotten used to the fence. And before you know it, you've got all four sides and you've got the wild boar. And what did they do?
Awesome.
They volunteered their freedom. TSA.
Well, that's the trick of what they do, isn't it? Is like they have a habit of coming out going, hey, we're going to do something that's good for you. And you're like, okay. And you let them do it. And you don't realize that it's always the opposite. That's why when they say, oh, universal healthcare is good, I'm like, no, it's not. The healthcare industry is where I'm from, and I know it inside and out. I sit on a national advisory board. So when you go, this is what we're going to do, I go, oh my God, no, people, please do your research. It's just, it's not good for you. Lynette, do you think we'll ever get back to the gold and silver standard, in your opinion?
Well, yeah. Now fully, no, but yes, they are absolutely going to have to do it when people have lost all confidence. Now, if they can get you confident in the new digital currency, like Bitcoin, like the cryptocurrencies, which is, I don't think it was an accident that it came out in 2009 when they started doing QE. So if they can get you comfortable with that, but that's an if. History tells us 100% of the time, they have to put a component of gold in the currency so that the public has confidence. And can I ask you a question, Pimpy?
Sure.
Can I ask Pimpy a question? Okay. Since you come from that medical background, what do you think about the what is it? Operation Warp Speed, and they've now begun to distribute the vaccine.
The jabs.
So so anytime, I think what it is with let me see, anything that is rushed makes me nervous if they don't do the proper testing. You know what I mean? Now, so I'm conflicted in this way. We get inundated when it comes to regulations. Regulations are too much red tape. It defers the smaller man from growing versus the people who are already giants. So I know when we used to go through the FDA and everything else to go through all the testing, it used to be very, very affordable. But as time went on, they got slick and they started jacking up the cost to an unbelievable amount so that only the big companies could afford these fees, and anybody that had something that could benefit the humanity if they didn't have the money to push this through, and I'll give you a perfect example, Dr. Brzezowski, who's in Dallas, who's, got all kinds of patents on way to cure people from cancer. Now, he doesn't have the money. He doesn't have the money to push his ideas through. As a matter of fact, our own government stowed his patents. So again, we start getting in this weird territory. So when we're talking about these vaccines, when you see them rushed through there the way they are, I don't mind if they're rushed, but are you doing the proper testing? How many people have been tested? How many life subject matters have you done? So it's not a matter of timing. It's a matter of process that I want to question. So I don't like it. Look what's happening over in Europe. We have facial paralysis. People are dying. Again, whether people call you tinfoil hat wearers, if you say this, look, we already know that one of these agendas that are out there is they want to reduce the amount of population. And people go, that's not possible. I go, are you kidding? We have 5 damn Democratic governors who stuck sick patients in with healthy elderly people. And in my opinion, they murdered them. So this is just to pump the numbers up, cause fear, and it puts you in real unhealthy situations. You quarantine the sick, not the health. You wear the sick wear the mask, not the healthy. When you wear a mask and you're healthy, reduces the amount of oxygen that's in the body. And here's the thing that people don't know. Our vaccinations that we got growing up, like polio and all those things, if you wear a mask and your oxygen level starts to lower, you can trigger those very things you're protected from. You can trigger them to become active. And then now all of a sudden, what are we seeing around the world? A growth in polio again. And people are like, well, I thought we eradicated it. If you don't put the mask on, people. So then the long short of the answer is, it makes me nervous when I see the process rushed without being tested properly. Now you could go fast, but just make sure the process is proper. I don't like it at all. I don't trust it. I'm a non-vax person. I'm a non-mask person. I can't tell you how many times I've been in trouble for walking around without a mask. I don't care. I live in liberal hell or communist California. So, it's not easy, but I'm not a fan of the vaccines right now. I'm happy what Trump did, as long as the most important steps were taken to make sure that the people are safe. And I'm not so sure that's been done, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Lynette, I wanted to make sure too, because I didn't ask you at the very beginning of this conversation how you were with time, and I wanted to make sure I was being respectful of your time as well.
Well, I'm good, and I don't have my timer, so I don't know how long.
We've been going about an hour and 16 minutes, and normally this is longer than I normally do with you.
I want to listen to this.
I mean, I totally enjoy it. I know you're engaged. I just want to be respectful of your time at the same time. Normally, I have to gauge this.
We're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whenever you need to balance, just let me know. Otherwise, Pimpy is just going to talk your head off.
Yeah, I will talk bad. I will. I will keep you on all day long.
Right?
What's that, Lynette?
You're doing this live, so you can't even break it into like small bite-sized pieces.
No, but that's the cool thing. I mean, if the conversation, I think, has been engaging enough that somebody should want to listen to this thing all the way through. I don't really like the idea of breaking things down into small parts just to get more views and things like that. If somebody doesn't have the time to commit to watching it the whole time, I would just say come back and continue where you left off, because I mean, all of our conversations are things that you got to listen to it from the beginning to end to get the gist of it, because like this one, you kind of bounce back around with some of the things we're talking and incorporating it and tying it all together because it's all connected.
It is all that's the thing. Everything is interconnected. And that's why it's so important, to talk about all these different things. I mean, one of my daughters, and I wanted to ask you that, Pimpy, because obviously this is a big issue right now, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they're definitely on a campaign to get people to take the vaccine. I'm definitely also a Novak, but I just had a conversation with my daughter, who's a doctor, and, and she's telling me, yes, they had meetings at the hospital and this and that and the other thing, and and I just said, okay, Whit, but I'm not taking it.
So here's the thing when it comes to doctors, because you bring up a good point. So the doctors, they go to school, they're taught a certain way, their education is a certain way. That education, you got to understand, fits into
the system. Yeah, because that's why they're practicing medicine.
Yeah.
Just like
that's why they call it a
practicing law. None of these people
practicing law, practicing
everybody's
medicine.
practicing, but nobody's actually doing it.
Yeah. Well, that's why back in the older days, the same person who was cutting your hair also could do surgery on you. You know what I mean? Those little, what is that, the blue, red, and white twirly things in front of your barber shop? That was back in the olden days. People don't know this, but they were able to do things that doctors did. And so, I mean, everything is always practice. We're trying to fine tune everything. But just as soon as you think you've mastered something, guess what? There's a new hurdle that will all of a sudden pop up. And that's why it's constantly being called practicing. Now, having said that, here's what I will say about vaccines. So people go, what about you, Pimpy? What would you do? And this is from my heart, bottom of my heart. One, anything and everything about the Rona. The fact that they won't even allow opposing views, I don't like. They censor you, they block it. So that should tell you the truth about what's going on with the Rona. And that is, it's not as bad as when I see all these. It's hard not to say political parties.
It's not about the Rona. It's about the.
But when you see Democrats pushing these archaic situations, and then all of a sudden they're running around without masks, that's how you know it's not as serious as they're making it out to be. If it was, they would be actually wearing masks. So when I say that, I will say this: there's no way in hell I would let my grandchildren or my own children or myself take a vaccine, if I'm just being honest. I just don't trust it at the moment.
That's amazing. Your children's going to give you that option.
No. You know what's even scary? Did you see what they're doing? The Democrats are trying to pass a law to allow the age of 11 or older to consent for vaccines. 11-year-old.
Wow.
If somebody touched my child or my grandchildren and did that, and I don't care what your law is, I can't explain to people the amount of ugly I will unload on you for something like that. But again, it's hard not. You ever have this trouble when you're trying to explain something and you're trying to avoid being political, but it's hard to because of the current times we're in. You know what I mean? So when I'm trying to explain it to people, it's like hard not to say, this consent of 11 years or older is 100% supported by Democrats, and there's no Republicans on this ticket. So it's hard not to get political, but it is to make a point that there is one group of people who are behind this. I call it a plandemic. If you look at the Great Reset, if you told people what the Great Reset was and you asked them would they accept it, there's no way in hell they would. But if you do things and manipulate things and put people in a situation to where they're so desperate, then they'll be begging you for it. So what do? You crash the economies around the world. Well, how do you do that? With the pandemic that has a 99.6% survival rate. And it would be even better if you didn't put sick in elder people, and with the more healthier elder people, the amount of deaths would be lower. And I don't trust what the media says. We've learned not to get all sidetracked on tinfoil hat wearing stuff. But the truth is, I don't trust the numbers that are out there.
It's real.
Well, look what the CDC said. They said, well, the truth of the matter is only 6% of all reported deaths are directly from the Rona. The rest is people had comorbidities. So all it did is expedite them or exasperate them. So, it's just, no, there's no reason for us to be wearing masks. There's no reason for quarantine. There's no reason for us to be doing vaccines at all. This is all part of that Great Reset is what it is. And
where I live in North Carolina, they just last week did a big, huge announcement and press release and all the hoopla that they do on the news about extending out the next phase of the lockdowns. So here, they're making a bar stop serving alcohol at 9:00 p.m. and they have a 10:00 p.m. curfew.
Well, now I have a problem with that.
I don't understand. It's like, is there a higher percentage of a chance of being able to get SID after 10:00 p.m.? Like all day we're out here, mixing our germs together and but something about
if you look at
changes.
If you have Republican controlled states versus the Democratic controlled states, again, it's hard not to get political. But you look at the hell that the Democrats are putting their people through, and they still have escalated amounts of so-called cases. And then you look at the Republicans who have opened it up to the public. People are out there, some of them a little bit limited, but without the mask, the people with the mask are higher levels than those without the mask, because people forget we have what's called herd immunity. So eventually what happens is the body has the ability to adapt, and we start making naturally antibodies to these sicknesses. But again, it's just, I love how the news goes, oh, we have now 200,000 new cases. So, but here's the great thing about the Rona. We care about the deaths. Here's the great thing about the Rona. It has magically around the world cured the flu, pneumonia, cancer. If you go and you look at the CDC reports of deaths, those numbers are drastically down. Only 2 countries in 2020 have reported any flu deaths. What the hell happened to the flu deaths? Where did they go? What about pneumonia deaths? Why are they all 0? That's because they're inflating the numbers. This has got to be both the best and the greatest sickness ever. It cures flu, cures pneumonia, cures cancer. But, you know, if you're elderly, you could die because you don't want to be in a
well, then look at all the control that's been able to be implemented on that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so I mean, that's the ultimate thing, is what
that's the ultimate goal.
How much control? How much are people going to listen to the government? How much are they going to put up with until somebody finally says, no, that's just getting a little bit too much.
The media is not helping. You got people shooting other people for not wearing a mask. That's how ridiculous
you got people
it is.
Beating people up. You've got people physically assaulting other people as if
they're afraid.
Some sort of enforcement.
Yeah, they're afraid.
But you can get that physically close to somebody, yet you're that scared. So
yeah,
I mean, you gotta love the fact that, Lynette, you'll get a kick out of this. You gotta love the fact that you have to go to a grocery store, right? You have to wear a mask. Meanwhile, we don't wear any gloves, so everybody's touching all the items, and you're touching the same items. You know what I mean? Why is it that you have to wear a mask but you don't wear gloves? Does that make any sense whatsoever? And especially when you get into like fruits and vegetables, the produce area, people are fondling those all day long, but you don't have to wear gloves. The fact that you see Democrats running around all day long, and they're constantly hypocrites running around without the mask, tells you one thing, and that is this. It's not as bad as they're pretending it to be. How many times have you drove down the street and seen dead homeless people? You don't. That's because it's a lie. If it was as bad as it was, you would see dead homeless people everywhere.
Just a reduction of homeless. And in Los Angeles, all around Los Angeles, all around Vegas, even where I live, if you see anything, they're moving homeless people into hotels and stuff like that right now. They're trying to make it as if there's not as much, like, especially in my area. Now, in an area like Los Angeles, where you've got basically tents everywhere, you don't have enough to be able to put those people off the street. You're not seeing a decline. On my end,
you're seeing the increase in homeless people.
I've got to wrap things up on my end within the next 15 minutes. I do apologize to everybody.
Okay. No, I'm just grateful that she's here. Good Lord, are you kidding me? I tell people when I get excited, I do the Pimpy dance. This is me doing the Pimpy dance. It's because I'm so excited.
I know
and
you
so when Bryce said, "Hey, look, we're going to do an interview with Lynette," I was like, "What? What? Stop playing with my emotions. You know how I feel about that, man."
We're gonna have to do this again. I mentioned it to Jacqueline just a moment ago on text, and we're definitely gonna have to do something like this again.
I hope so.
This was a lot of fun. I will just say, though, I think that what's happening with the coronavirus is more about the economics and the LIBOR transition and the justification and getting everybody in line. And as you guys pointed out, scared enough to accept anything that they will cram down our throats. And Jim Cramer was talking about, well, pay people to take the vaccine. Just pay them to take the vaccine. You get so much compliance, and he's probably right. It's
I'll tell you what, let the powers that be take the vaccine, but not any vaccine, because I know how the medical field works. You could do a needle. It looks like they're taking a vaccine, but they're not. Let me go over and I'll pick out the vaccine and I'll put it in their body and let's see what they do. They won't do it. They don't take it.
This reminds me of a quote too from Benjamin Franklin that I think should also be said and be reminded of people that
penny earned is a penny. No,
those who would give up essential liberties to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety.
Yes, that's actually the biggest one.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to bring that up, especially in this time, because that's exactly what's happening. Is people are trading off
That or republic
for
as
this,
well, as long as
the
you can keep
rights
it. That's the other one.
and things that we have for this false sense of security. And for those people who are doing that deserve neither. And we have a responsibility, as stated by John F. Kennedy in his inaugural speech, where he said that we dare not forget today that we are heirs of that first revolution, the Revolutionary War. We, the people, are supposed to be keeping our government in check. Ultimately, we, the people, have that responsibility, and we've gotten really laxed and lazy. And
We fell asleep at the wheel.
that needs to change, because this is supposed to be a government for the people, of the people, by the people. And that's not what's taking place. It's as if we have subcontractors running some corporation, and that's not how this is supposed to be.
Exactly. I think that was really well said.
Thank you. Thank you. Pimpy, do you have like any last final things that you want to kind of ask with? Because like I said, in the next 10 minutes, so I got to wrap things up.
No problem whatsoever. Lynette, I absolutely love you, and I'm grateful for this interview. Thank you, Chris, for making this happen. I was really looking forward to this.
Well, and we couldn't do this live on both channels, unfortunately. So as soon as we're done, I'll get a copy over to Pimpy, and he'll have it uploaded on his channel too as well. So I just want to remind people that depending on where you're watching this, make sure you're subscribed to both channels. And make sure if you're not already subscribed to Lynette's channel that you subscribe to ITM Trading's YouTube channel. Links are going to be down below as well for that.
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of people were looking forward to this interview as well, though they did want us to talk more about cryptos than we did probably.
Well, then we can do this again. I mean,
We'll do it again.
Me and you have talked about crypto, and I kind of know where you're at. We've even had the conversation of earlier this year about what happens when you're seeing the lack of physical silver and gold being available to the everyday person. What are they supposed to do to be able to preserve their wealth when they can't get these physical things? And that's where I thought something like cryptocurrency would be a good alternative. Now, I'm not for a complete digital society as much as I'm pro cryptocurrency. I'm pro decentralization, and blockchain and crypto are tools, just like a gun. It can be used for good, and it can be used for bad. So again, this kind of goes back into us being lazy as a people. We need to start stepping up and being accountable for what we do, and making sure that others are being accountable for what they do. It's evolving as where we are as a species.
Well, it's true. And I would also like to say, before we close, is that it's times like these that make my mantra so important, because we all need to become our own central bankers. And that goes back to the food, water, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. This is what we need no matter what's happening in the economy, to feel secure and safe. And you should not be trusting anybody to provide that. You should be doing it yourselves. And then that gives you the ability, March and April, and even today, I mean, it doesn't matter, but I have the ability to help a lot of people. And I absolutely do, because I've been fortunate enough and paying attention enough to have built that security around myself. Then I can help others and not jeopardize my own personal security.
Since you said that, I guess this would be a good time for you to promote what you actually do as a chief market analyst at ITM Trading, and how ITM can actually help people that are interested in investing in things like precious metals, gold and silver, and even gold backs.
Absolutely. Well, what we're looking at is, as a chief market analyst, I've been in this industry on some level since 1964. And in 1987, I studied currency life cycles, and I developed a strategy for myself based upon those repeatable patterns. So at ITM Trading, we've really fully adopted the strategy and worked together. Thank you, the goldbacks, to really kind of bring everything together. So anybody that's working with ITM, if they choose to, they're executing the same strategy that I am. What I like about goldbacks is that one goldback has 1/1000th of an ounce of gold
for the $1 denomination, but they go up per the other denominations, which is why the bills are a little bit different in size. But
exactly.
that $1 bill being 1/1000th of an ounce, that's powerful.
That's very powerful, because it enables you to have a bill in your wallet on your person that has that little teeny weeny bit of gold in it for barter, as part of the line of defense. Now you need more than that, but it definitely, I think it can be not a full cash replacement, but definitely a chunk of a cash replacement. And then of course you need your silver and then your larger pieces of gold. So, but it's all with the physical markets at this moment. That will change and evolve as this whole trend evolves. But that's what we do at ITM Trading. We don't just say, here's some gold and silver, good luck to you. We're really about education, and actually it's a long-term commitment for everybody through this whole trend cycle.
Well said. Well said. Pimpy, you got any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
No, I'm grateful and I appreciate everything. And I hope everybody has a great holidays that are coming up. I know there's a lot of crazy times going on right now. Just bear through it. I think things will get better, believe it or not, here shortly.
Well, it's been a great conversation, and I'm definitely going to have to get in touch with Jacqueline and schedule another one and make sure that we can do this again. And Pimpy, if you ever want to do it one-on-one, I'll definitely get you connected. I can see that you guys hit it off. So
I'm so bad at this, Lynette, just so you know. I've been doing like over a year now videos on YouTube, and I've yet to learn how to do a live interview or an interview at all. My friend's like, do Zoom, dude, do Zoom. I'm like, yeah, I'll learn it. But my life is so crazy and I'm always so busy. It never feels like I
got to go visit him in California and like physically show him how to do this stuff.
Yeah, because Pimpy, I do have Dylan, Jacqueline, and Megan, so I shouldn't say I know how to do it, but I know how to push a button. Yeah. They can set it up for me and I can push a button.
No, I think my biggest problem is the fact that I'm trying to do this all on my own. I don't have a staff. Don't get me wrong, I can afford one, but I just, even my tax person's like, why don't you have a staff? And I'm like, I'm trying to do this all on my own. And it's like, my friend's like, no, you're too big now and you have to change. So I have a studio being built on my property right now, so it could look a lot more professional. The reason why you see this ugly blanket behind me is my house is being remodeled. And I don't know if if you ever remodeled your house, the more it gets remodeled, the more everything looks packed and ugly. So I'm like, oh, it's just dirty. And I'm like one of these clean freaks. So I'm constantly in a state of just hurry up. But the more you remodel, the dirtier it looks. But now we're starting to make some headway here and it's starting to look better. People are starting to move into the remodeled rooms. I'm like, good. Get in there, just clean, please. It's driving me crazy. But yeah, now I have my studio being built right now, so that will be better.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
Get some help. Get some help.
Ladies and gentlemen, links down below for everything that we talked about in today's episode. Make sure that you are subscribed to all three of our channels, Pimpy's Investment Chat, ITM Trading, and Rice TV. Links are going to be down below for everything. If you haven't smashed that like button, I definitely encourage you to do that because it helps other people to see this information on the YouTube algorithm flow. And as always, I encourage everyone to be the change by practicing change. Lynette, we appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate
Thank you, Lynette.
And as always, nice to meet you, Pimpy.
You too.
You guys be the change by practicing change.